Boom. What's up, guys? Instead of talking about the latest, trendiest tech stacks or whatever cool language all you kids are using out there, I wanted to talk about something today that's actually important to me and that actually is quote unquote cool and trendy, but it's just not as cool as trendy as people know yet. And that's Web 3.0. So let's get into it. All right. So first off, what is Web 3.0? If you don't know what quote unquote Web 2.0 or Web 1.0 is, we're gonna have to go over that real quick. Somebody in one of my last videos in the comment section, when I was talking about Ethereum and I explained Bitcoin first, they said this would be a great video if you skip the part about Bitcoin. So sorry, that guy in the comments. I'm gonna have to explain Web 1.0 and 2.0 first to the people who don't understand it. So just go ahead and fast forward if the first part doesn't interest you. Okay, but alas, Web 3.0. So essentially the term Web 3.0 is currently being used to talk about the World Wide Web, the internet, but the third iteration of it, all right? And most people don't even know that there's quote unquote iterations of the internet, but there actually is. So if you go back and look at a timeline, and we'll talk about Web 1.0 first, right? Because you gotta know what Web 1.0 is. But if you go back at a timeline and you look at like the early 1990s, and some people say this started in the late 1980s, but probably more so in the early 1990s. This was the birth of the public internet, okay? And this was kind of like important for many reasons. Mostly because it was the liberation of information, right? People, everyday average Joes who could afford an internet and access to a computer or afford a computer, or even people that just went to a library, right? Like a public library, they could get on the internet, okay? And this is important for many reasons. Obviously, you guys know what y'all use the internet for every single day, so I don't have to sit here, surely I don't have to sit here and talk about why that's important, but that encompasses Web 1.0, all right? And if you think about back in those times, like companies like Amazon, Netscape, all that stuff was booming and banging, and those were kind of like the big players of Web 1.0. So basically, to keep it short and sweet, you can think of Web 1.0 as the birth of the internet. And then that brings us to Web 2.0, right? And what is Web 2.0? You can think of Web 2.0 as the birth of internet services, okay? Think about mid-2000s, maybe like 2005, 2006, maybe 2004, whatever. And keep in mind, there's no like hard capped date on when these things were happening, all right? But Facebook, it's a social media website, right? It's a social media network application, right? And then you have things like Google, Amazon, Instagram, yada, yada, yada. And this part of the internet is when we started having access to larger pools of information. And the reason for that is because with Web 1.0, it's considered to be read-only, which really just means that the only people that were creating stuff on Web 1.0 were like software engineers and developers and big companies who had the funds and the means to put stuff on the internet. And also, during Web 1.0, this stuff was not like publicly easily accessible for people to find information about how to do like web development and stuff like that. So mostly people were connecting to the internet to read stuff and to look at stuff. They weren't really there to create things. However, with the birth of social media, it made it really easy for the average person to just go ahead and talk about whatever they want. So at this point, the average person can put information out there without having to code, without having to do anything important, all right? Also, Web 2.0 was kind of like mobile first driven. So everything went from being on a desktop to your phone in the palm of your hands. So, you don't have to go to an ATM to check your balance at a bank anymore or go through a browser in your desktop. You could just open up your app on your phone and check your bank account balance there, right? Another important thing about Web 2.0 is a lot of stuff became cloud-based. So this is also a huge milestone for the internet. But the problem, and trust me, there are many problems with Web 2.0, was that this kind of created like a monopolization on pretty much any sort of tech, right? There was no room for competition, okay? And technically we're still kind of in Web 2.0, right? So there's no room for competition. Not only is there no room, it's like almost impossible for a new company to come up out of the blue without some serious funding or having someone back them, okay? And compete with these companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google, Netflix, all right? FANG, all right? And if you guys don't know what FANG is, Google it. And if you guys notice, a lot of startup companies that actually do a good job, they always end up getting eaten up by one of these big companies, right? So that's problem number one. And yeah, I mean, major companies that have the most money, they have the best talent or the best access to the best talent. They have the most resources, the most power, and the most computing power. So it's hard to have something new come up when we have all these barriers in front of us, okay? And another problem with Web 2.0 is kind of like this winner-take-all mentality, which people don't really realize it, but it's caused massive income inequality all throughout the world, okay? Which is a problem, right? Especially if you go to some third world countries. If you don't believe me, go ahead and go see for yourself. Okay, so those are two big problems with Web 2.0. Another big problem with Web 2.0 is that people don't have rights, privileges, or controls over their data. So what you guys don't realize is that when you're on Facebook, YouTube, like you are right now, Amazon, anything, any kind of app that you have installed on your phone, obviously no one reads the terms of service, right? But they basically garnish all of your rights to your data. And you think that the product that you're using, so your Facebook app, your Amazon app, you think that that's the product, but it's not actually the product. You are the product. And they're using your data they're monetizing off of your data, okay? I believe like Amazon, like the actual Amazon like mail service, they actually like don't profit every single year from the money that they make from Amazon.com. They make most of their profits elsewhere, and I'm sure you can assume that selling data to people for your information, for targeted ads, and many other things, right? Who knows? That's where they get a large portion of their money. Another thing is, if you guys remember Project Prism, Edward Snowden was ousted for this and ostracized, but he basically like showed the entire world that the governments have been spying on everybody through backdoors of every single big tech company. And, so big problems with your data. Another thing is, in order for them to get the most data out of you, they have to make you addicted to these applications and these products, quote unquote products, because in reality, you're the product. And using a phone is a literal addiction. That's not something we're going to talk about in this video, but there's a thing called time well spent, all right? And if you guys want to Google time well spent, time is not well spent on Instagram. Time is not well spent on majority of these platforms unless you're trying to use it for business purposes. And all of us do it, right? We all do it because we're addicted. But what the point is for them is to make you as addicted as possible so you can stay on the application and continue to come back to it so they can harvest as much data on you as they possibly can. All right. Another problem with Web 2.0 is that everything's centralized. Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't know what centralized is, think about Facebook. They have so many servers across the world, and yeah, it's maybe they have multiple nodes and different servers across the world. So if one goes down, they'll be okay, but that's good for them and not you. Okay, it's still all owned by Facebook. All right, and because of this, if they disagree with you, they can censor you. Any of these companies can censor anybody with just a click of a button. So you're basically giving totalitarian control over a small group of people who aren't governmental organizations, right? They base their control of who they censor off of their own personal beliefs and opinions. And, they can do that if they want because they're companies, right? They're a business, and businesses can choose who they want to do business with. I'm okay with that. But The idea is that you should be able to, if you don't like the service that one company provides, you should easily be able to go to their competitor, right? Who's Facebook's competitor? Instagram? Facebook owns Instagram, and it's still a different application from like Facebook, right? What about Google, YouTube? Same company, all right? And keep in mind, all these guys, they're kind of like all intertwined over there in Silicon Valley, diddling each other and making backhand deals. I don't have any proof on that, all right? So don't quote me, but come on, you guys know. So there's a lot of problems, but that's essentially encompasses all the problems of Web 2.0, all right? And the reason why I wanted to say that before I started describing what Web 3.0 is because the whole point of Web 3.0 is to eliminate all these issues from a user's perspective, all right? Where the user is you. Another notable thing about Web 3.0 is the birth of DeFi, or decentralized finance, all right? And this is the part that allows almost anyone to compete with large companies and corporations with big money. I won't get into the technicals about what DeFi is. If you guys want to Google it and learn some more, do that, or put a comment in the video, and I can make a video about DeFi. But essentially, DeFi allows people to create, get funding, monetize, and have access to money and financial prospects without the need of a centralized organization. And this is super important, especially for like countries like Africa and places that people are unbanked, all right? But it's also more important for our privacy too. And speaking of privacy, another extremely large component of Web 3.0 is that there's a lot more privacy and a lot less control from large organizations. And you can use in your head what you guys think about as a large organization. I'm sure you guys can come up with an idea or two. But from large organizations controlling you with what you do with your money, especially when it comes to money being used from technology. So like we do every day, guys. You guys don't probably know is that if you have like $100,000 in a bank account, I dare you to go to your bank and try to ask to have all that money in cash and cashed out and leave the bank. Good luck, because it's probably not gonna happen. So yeah, I just wanted to note that too, because I think DeFi is also extremely important when it comes to Web 3.0. And that brings us to Web 3.0. So we know Web 1.0 is like the birth of the internet, all right? And then Web 2.0 is like the birth of internet services. Web 3.0 is kind of like the rebirth of the internet. And it's the rebirth of the internet, kind of rebuilding it back to the way that the original creators had intended it to be, okay? And you can think of Web 3.0 as denoted by being decentralized, all right? And this is done because of blockchain technology, which I'm sure you guys probably have at least a clue about what that is. You can also say that Web 3.0 has a little to do with like AI-driven services and I guess edge computing infrastructure, but most importantly, the biggest component here about Web 3.0 is that it's decentralized, okay? And why is this beneficial? Why is this important? Now there's going to be no more ownership on giant platforms, right? So if there's a platform on Web 3.0 that people want to use, I don't know, let's just say a social media platform, the owners of the social media platform, well, first of all, there isn't going to be really any true owners. But let's just say that there is. The quote-unquote owners of this platform can't just censor you or ban you based off of a certain belief or opinion because they don't like what you say. It would require them to have a majority of the power in the network, which is pretty much impossible. All right, and I'm talking about a true Web 3.0 network. Okay, if it's run off of like blockchain technology, so i.e. Ethereum, the Ethereum network, it would be pretty much impossible for a specific company to get rid of somebody. So let's just say Facebook themselves have multiple nodes on the Ethereum network. They still can't change the code and censor you, okay? Because they're not the only people who have ownership of that part of the network or of the network in general. Other people all across the world have ownership over this network, okay? So censorship is pretty much going to be impossible. And also, with Web 3.0, almost anybody can participate in one way, shape, or form and become a big player in the game. So unlike Web 2.0, where it's hard or almost basically impossible to compete with companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, whatever, if someone's willing to do the work, they can benefit from it and monetize that work. All right. So this basically allows unlimited new entrants into this space. Okay, and at this point, because this is the case, you have a lot more control of your data as well, and you are no longer going to be the product. Applications that you will use are going to be the product, and if you want to, share your data, you can get paid for it, and you can control who, what, when, where, why, and how your data is seen, and you can actually get paid for it. All right, so you're no longer just being a harvested drone inside of this network. Okay. And all this is important, specifically the decentralization portion of it, because this would undo everything that Web 2.0 or all the problems that Web 2.0 has caused. This brings a lot more power to the individual who's, like I said before, willing to do the work. And in the future, people are no longer going to choose to use services that are centralized, because why would they if they could just go to another place that they can get a better service from and not have things stolen and taken from them without their permission, and then probably make money off of it too, right? It doesn't make any sense, okay? So to recap, Web 1.0, birth of the internet; Web 2.0, birth of internet services; and Web 3.0, you can consider the rebirth of the internet, all right? And guys, this is the future. I didn't sit here and talk a whole bunch of technical stuff because I don't know, the average audience member probably doesn't know a whole lot about this stuff. But I hope you walk away from this video just understanding that the internet as we know it is going to change. And it's going to change very soon in a very drastic way. And it's going to benefit all of us, all right? It's not just going to benefit these top dog companies who are out there and running a monopoly and everything. And this is essentially like another step in the freedom of mankind. All of us are taking one step closer to being absolutely free and relieved from totalitarian control, excuse me. So I hope you guys learned something. If you resonate with what I said, smash the like button, eatliftprogram.com to get in contact with me, developerdirection.com to join the network. Follow me on Instagram at eatliftprogram, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.